Hi, my name's Lenny, this is Jake, and today we're going to be answering a whole bunch of questions around how to sell on Amazon. If you haven't seen it, it's a popular video on our channel, goes for an hour and a half and walks you through all the steps of how to get started. And so we've grabbed a whole bunch of questions from there, which we're going to be answering today. So see this video as a great companion guide to that one. If you haven't watched that already, I recommend watching that one after this. We're also going to be taking some questions live, so if you're on Instagram or if you're on YouTube, make sure to drop those in the comments, and we're going to be going between the pre-submitted and the questions from you all live. So let's kick things off.
Let's do it.
We are going to kind of start with product research. We're going to kind of go in order, and we're going to start with some questions about how to find your product. So what's the first one that we've got here, Jake?
All right, so question number one about product research is, I have $300, United States dollars. Which model should I follow? And I assume if this is coming from that, our video, how to sell on Amazon, they're talking about which business model. So private label, wholesale, arbitrage, dropshipping, KDP, any of those. So what I would say is $300 is a low amount. However, don't let that stop you doing private label. You can still find products that are really cheap to sell. However, you are going to sell out really quickly, and then you're gonna have months essentially without inventory. And that's okay, it's not ideal, but you can do that. 300 might be very low, but you can still technically get inventory on Amazon and go with the free plan. So you'd only pay about, I think it's like $1 per sale rather than $40 per month. So that's one way to save. However, if you wanna try something different, I would recommend Arbitrage. You can do this in store or online. You can start reselling items essentially using the existing listing on Amazon. So you don't have to create a listing from yourself and then go out and buy something from a supplier. You can do arbitrage and try to get that up to at least 1,000, ideally like 3,000 to 5,000. But if you wanted to get into private label, don't let the amount of money you have stop you. In a year from now, you'll be in a lot better place than if you just waited until you had, $1,000 to $3,000 or $5,000. So just start now. I would recommend private label, but if you wanted to, I'd say maybe arbitrage to get to that, $1,000 mark.
Yeah, I think like practically something like arbitrage with $300, it's probably gonna help you grow that a little bit quicker than just putting that directly into private label. Generally, I agree with what you were saying, Jake, about just like get started. Don't let the money hold you back. But I suppose it would depend on how quickly could you grow that. If like in another month you could have $600 or $1,000, then I would probably wait till you've got a little bit more to get started. But if it's like, if 300 is literally all you've got and it would take a year or you would never be able to get more, then I would go with your answer and say just get started with what you have, but just know that if you go with private label, you are going to run out of stock, and you are going to need to raise more money realistically to get another order in, because usually. Actually, this may be like a good point. Like, let's talk about why you need more money up front. And I just thought of this then. It's the main reason I would say is because those first 500,000 units, but the first units that you sell on Amazon are generally going to be steeply discounted. When you're in the prime of your business, it's like you can maybe sell with less inventory, and you're making a healthy profit on each of those units. So you're going to be growing your money, your initial capital. But when you're starting out, you're doing the opposite, and you're discounting heavily. So doing that with $300, discounting your product, you should hopefully at least make back your $300, but you mightn't make much more. So it is very hard to grow. That's why a smaller amount to get started is difficult. All right, what's the next question?
Great, so next question. If a product gets an opportunity score of 8, so high demand, low competition in one market category, but it gets a 3, so high demand and high competition in another category, is it still a good product to launch? And just for context here, if you're not aware, the opportunity score is essentially a grade within our Jungle Scout extension that allows you to see just very quickly, 1 out of 10, how good of an opportunity is the search results essentially that you're looking at, with 10 being better and 1 being worse, graded on high demand, low competition essentially. So they're saying, what if you find in one category it is a really good opportunity, so a score of an 8, versus in another slightly different keyword, but in that same market, I'd assume it's a lot lower. What are your thoughts on using the opportunity score in that way?
Yeah, so what I would do, like this happens, it depends on the keyword that you're on. So what I would always try to do is try to identify what is the main keyword that most people are gonna find this product on. I would take both of those keywords that you're looking at, and I would plug them into Keyword Scout, another Jungle Scout tool that tells you the amount of search volume for those keywords. And I would judge the opportunity more off of whatever's sort of the main keyword. Whichever one has the most search volume, that's the main way that people find your product. And so I would, judge the opportunity based off of that one, which, most likely is gonna be the lowest score. Generally, it's like the main way that people find the product is where you're gonna see a lower opportunity score, because there's generally gonna be more competition, but you should also see more demand. But where the other keywords come into play is like, I like to see that there are lots of different ways that people can find your product. We would call it sort of long tail keywords, meaning that they're just more detailed, less search volume type keywords. Those are nice, and sometimes you might find like a really competitive main keyword, and you might say like, oh, that's too competitive. But if you've got lots of these other smaller long tail keywords and you realize that, oh, there are actually lots of these other ones that are less competitive, maybe I can't compete on the main keyword, but I can by sort of winning and capturing all of these other smaller ones. So that's kind of how I would look at it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I'm the same way. In fact, I do what you're saying, just in a slightly different lens. I use the opportunity score personally for like advertising. Essentially, just looking at sales and reviews and telling you how hard it is to essentially compete to get to that top spot. So I'll look at it directionally when I'm doing product research, but I like to look at it for advertising. So it's essentially going to tell me how expensive that PPC bid is going to be, or how likely I am to rank on the top of that page. It's not going to essentially tell me, at least, that it's a good or bad opportunity to launch a product in. That's where I like to do like a manual assessment, but it is a good indicator to use directionally. Just don't put all of your eggs in the opportunity score. Make sure to do your own assessment as well.
Alrighty, what's our next question here?
Next question starts with, you guys are awesome. This is coming from a YouTube subscriber. So thanks.
The answer is yes.
Yes. So they're following from Spain, which is a smaller marketplace. Any advice on how to measure demand on smaller marketplaces? So comparing that to the US, of course. Obviously, I can't expect to have the same demand here as in the US. Cheers. So yeah, Lenny, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. My thought is the US market is a really good indicator directionally. However, it's not going to give you exactly what's happening in your culture or in your country. So certainly there might be some products out there that are global, like I'm gonna think of a really generic one like pencils or dishwasher fluid or anything like that that's generic that will work when you go to different marketplaces. However, there might be cultural nuances there that we have in the US that you don't have in Spain, or you have in Spain, you don't have the US. So consider that. What are like the main staples that you could bring over and use the US data into your marketplace? But then also think about it like, you're an expert hopefully in your country, or at least know what people like and what they don't like. So just use a little bit of both of that knowledge to your advantage.
Yeah, I think like a long time ago when I used to answer this question, I had a very oversimplified answer, which I don't think is a great answer, but it was just to kind of like drop or halve, the numbers that we talk about. Like we talk about like, oh, you want at least like 300 units per day, 300 sales per month, sorry. In the US, it's like, oh, you might drop that to like 150 or 200 in some of these other marketplaces. Generally, you will definitely want to reduce them. I don't know what that number is, but I would, the other way I would look at it as well is I would just look for opportunities relative within your marketplace. So Spain in this example. So I would look at a whole bunch of different opportunities and just try to find the best numbers or the highest demand, etc., within the products that you're looking at. I would also maybe look at the demand for products that are in like the best sellers lists, and those will kind of give you an idea of like, this is what an extremely high demand product looks like. And yeah, use that as kind of a benchmark then when you're looking at other products. But yeah, essentially you're probably gonna like need to at least halve the numbers that we talk about in the US. But yeah, I don't have like a specific number, but hopefully the strategies we've shared there kind of help.
And something real quick I want to show on screen here, Lenny, actually. If you're on YouTube, I wanted to pull up my screen here to Jungle Scout. And this is our product database tool. We're talking about the US data, but you can come in here and use Spain or Germany, Mexico, Canada, all these different marketplaces here, and look at the data on that marketplace. So if you're selling and you're using Jungle Scout, or think about selling and using Jungle Scout, make sure to use these tools here and these filters to find specific data in your country. You can do this with the Opportunity Finder as well.
Awesome, awesome. Cool. What have we got next?
Yeah, so the next question here on product research is, but if I break even pricing and then spend money on Amazon ads, I'll be making a significant loss, right? I guess we should factor in ad spend when calculating our break even. So when we're thinking about how much money we're gonna get back, we need to calculate ad spend.
Yeah, so when you watch How to Sell on Amazon or other videos of ours, we talk about like the rule of thirds, where when you're trying to gauge whether you should sell a product or not, you kind of like think about it in terms of like 1/3 goes to the supplier, 1/3 goes to Amazon, and then the other third goes to you. So you're generally trying to find products where you can make about 33% or 1/3 back in profit when you, after all expenses, and based on the average price for that product. So yes, that is a sort of a simplified approach, and it doesn't account for every single cost, such as advertising. It does account for the biggest chunks of your costs though, so it's going to be fairly close. Yes, if you want to be accurate, I would add in like a small buffer there for Amazon ads. I would normally maybe say like between 5 to 10% you could allocate to advertising. There's not like an exact number. It seems to be less exact than sort of the other costs that we sort of mention, which is why we don't typically mention it. Because usually by the time you average out your advertising spend across all of your units sold, which includes organic, the actual sort of percentage per unit isn't as big. It's not like, it's not the same as your ACOS. If your ACOS is like 40%, it's not, you don't need to account for 40% on every single unit. Like when you blend that across all of your organic as well, it's probably gonna be a lot less.
Definitely.
So yeah, I would say add in something, but I don't think it needs to be super significant. When you're starting out though, like if you're launching, you are going to be spending more in advertising and just in general. So the way I like to look at it when I'm launching is I almost just have like a advertising budget separate, where it's like, okay, I've got $500 or whatever set aside that I'm willing to spend and potentially lose, but that's money is just there to launch your product, and I don't work that into the per unit cost, at least from the beginning.
I agree. I think that's a great way of doing it. You can separate it. We often actually even talk about as well that you can just add in an extra $1 or $2 for like mysterious. So things are gonna come up, whether it's returns, it's ad spend, aggressive ad spend, or there's so many different fees that you're hit with, or little costs that you have to account for, even outside of just like transactional costs, like things for your company. So I always, when I'm doing these calculations, add in a worst case scenario example. So I'll add in like an extra $2 just to account for things that I'm not aware of. But to your point, you're not always gonna pay that amount each and every sale. So keep that in mind and then plan for the worst case scenario.
Awesome. All right, let's just jump into Instagram and YouTube here. We're gonna answer a couple of questions live real quick. So I see one here on Instagram. Why when I look in Opportunity Finder, I see a niche like an 8, and then within a few hours, the same niche is at 3. I believe it's very confusing. So yeah, there's like a few things there. It's hard without actually kind of seeing the niche you're looking at, because again, it could be if you're just like typing in the keyword again later on, you might actually have a slightly different keyword, which, as we were explaining earlier, could give you a different number. I'd say it's like maybe that's possible. If it's literally the same page and you're refreshing it, I'm not sure.
The products could have changed as well. That's something to consider too, especially if you have ads turned on. Like in the extension, you could turn off ads, which will remove that data from the data set. But yeah, a lot of times, I mean, you keep refreshing the page, new products will show up. So that could be skewing the data or changing the data a little bit too.
Cool. Then, yeah, another question here on Instagram from Eddie Clinton. Hi guys, you find a product to sell via Jungle Scout. Do I need to just search for that product on Google to source it? Or is there a function built in to find that product online through Jungle Scout? So yeah, real quick, we'll talk about a couple of different ways to find products. One of the popular websites to go to is Alibaba. It's like a huge directory where you'll find lots and lots of manufacturers, and you can search by product. So that's always like a resource that we speak about. Jungle Scout does have a resource as well. One of our tools is called Supplier Database. Inside of that one, you can search for products, or you can search for companies or manufacturers directly. And what that information is, it's all of the import records into the US. And so we describe it as a really great way to verify suppliers that you've already found, or in some cases even find new suppliers that you weren't aware of. So it's not a complete solution. It helps you find information about suppliers, and then you still need to go to either find them on Alibaba or search for them to find their website. So the Supplier Database is a great tool in your tool belt when you're going about the sourcing process.
And just to add to that too, even if you're not going to use the Supplier Database, or you're using Alibaba or some other method, there's another tool within that supplier tool belt there called the Supplier Tracker. And so you can insert and organize all your suppliers there. You can have all your purchase orders in notes sort of in one spot. So you can even just use it as a way to organize all of your supplier notes like you would in Excel or a Google document.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna grab a couple of questions from YouTube before we move on with the next two. So the first one here from Stefano, which software should I use, Jungle Scout or Helium 10? Jungle Scout. Now, I might be a little bit biased, but that's my answer. AJ asks, interesting that you suggest private labeling for tiny startup budgets like $500. What's your take on using this capital on RA and OA, online arbitrage, and pros and cons of each at this point in time? So yes, we did answer a question earlier about like, could you get started with $300? Just to like be super clear on that.
Yeah.
And like we're saying that you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. I honestly would say like to be practical and to grow this quicker, because it's like if you're trying to grow this business, you generally want it to, you want to see quick wins, you want to see it move pretty quickly. $300 to $500 is going to be a very slow way to grow a business. Like I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't enjoy it. So we're not recommending you start with that. I think you really need a lot more. Like ideally, I would say at least $2,000 to $5,000, usually more on the high end. The more you can start out with, the better. So that's my answer on how much is ideal to spend. But before we were just saying that you could get started with that, as long as you're aware of the drawbacks. Like it is gonna be very slow. You are gonna run out of money, and you're gonna probably need to raise more money anyway to restock. So there's a lot of cons to that. But what you mentioned here about using a smaller budget to get started with retail or online arbitrage is, I don't know why there's a fly in here. I think that's probably a better way to go, is to like start out with retail arbitrage and just basically flipping discounted items that you find in store or that you find discounted online.
If your goal especially is to like get a fast return, if your goal is just to learn private label and education, and you're okay with a longer wait time, then definitely you can start some other business models like wholesale or private label. But yeah, if your goal is quick cash, quick turnover, then arbitrage is the way to go.
All right, let's jump into the next questions that we have here.
Keep submitting your questions, guys. We'll get through them as we make our way. But the next question is, at around 1 minute and 8 seconds into our How to Sell on Amazon video, you chose the product from a list. What happens if the product isn't currently sold on Amazon? So essentially, we're taking generic products and we're selling them on Amazon. And so I believe this question is like, what happens if this is like a brand new product, a brand new market? Well, we could launch it. However, there might not be any data to back up this decision. Like, is it actually going to be a good decision? but hopefully there's at least some data that suggests that people are looking for this type of product. That could be with keyword data, that could be with sales data, that could be looking at reviews and people are like, I wish it did this one thing or it doesn't do this thing well. And you're able to come in and improve that in any way, as long as you have data, whether it's hard data through sales or keyword insights or estimates, or through just countless people saying they want this thing, then that would work. However, yeah, be very careful, use data to your advantage, and if there's no market for it, just understand the risk going into that. Launching something completely new is awesome. I don't want to ever say like you should not invent a product because that's awesome. I think that's the goal, is to invent something, but just be very careful and understand your risks going into that.
Yeah, exactly. As with everything that we are talking about and will ever talk about, it's all, none of it's like hard and fast. Right. We're just kind of talking about, these are the things that are gonna give you the best chance of succeeding. So yeah, you can invent a product that has absolutely no demand, but you're gonna have to like work to generate that demand. And that could be a very uphill battle. You just need to really, really know your market and really, really understand that like people are going to want and need your product. So yeah, we normally wouldn't recommend it, but
definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Great question. So we're now past the first step in the video, which was how to find products, and now we're on to how to find Amazon suppliers. And if you remember this section, this is like my personal, I hate this section out of all the sections, because it's just not fun. Like we love finding products, but reaching out to suppliers is just like a hard thing to do. But the more you do it, the better you'll feel doing it. And so the first question here is how to find suppliers. Alibaba or freight forwarders versus Freightos. Alibaba's price is better than Freightos though, so which one do you recommend? So freight forwarder is a little bit different than a supplier. However, a lot of times your supplier is a freight forwarder. I definitely recommend, like Lenny mentioned earlier, to use Alibaba to find them, or Jungle Scout to find who they are and then use Alibaba to message them. Freightos is a great way to find freight forwarders, the people who will help you move your inventory into your country. So use both together. That's what we did. We used Alibaba to find our supplier, Jungle Scout to organize it, and Freightos to manage the actual inventory coming from our supplier's warehouse into Amazon FBA. So use both. You don't just have to use one or another.
Yeah, the only other thing that I can kind of add to that, like pros and cons, and this is what I've found, is that I would agree that, okay, so you've got your suppliers, well, your supplier's freight forwarder or organized through your supplier, and then you've got freight forwarders that you basically find yourself. Yeah. And I have also found that generally your supplier will give you a better price than you'll find, say, on Freightos or finding your own freight forwarders. The downside to that is that you typically have less communication and control with what's going on. So your supplier is now the middleman between you and the freight forwarder or the person that's got your inventory. And so it's cheaper, but you have a little less control. And typically when I've used that option, which is a lot because it is cheaper, so I do like that option, but then getting updates on like, where is my shipment and things like that, I haven't been able to get answers. It's been like, oh, it's on the way, just kind of like wait for it to rock up. Whereas if you get your own freight forwarder, you generally will have like a lot better communication and you'll know where your order is at all times. So that's kind of like the pros and cons that I've seen in my experience.
Totally agree. It's a great point.
Cool.
Sweet, great question. The next question here is, when you order the sample, for example, say you order 2,000, do you need then to order an additional set for your shipment to Amazon? Or can you use the sample you already paid for? So, okay, so this is asking if you can use your sample maybe in your listing images or to sell it?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you're talking literally about selling your sample, then like, no. So the way it usually works is we often recommend differentiation. So taking a generic product, but then making something different. At the very least, just at least getting like your logo or brand name engraved on it or stuck on it or something. But quite often when you get a sample, you're just getting a completely generic product with nothing on it, and because they typically won't customize a sample for you unless maybe it is like just putting a sticker on it or something, because they'll often need to create a brand new mold and they don't want to create go to all of that expense and effort just for one sample without getting a commitment from you for a bigger order. So usually you have a generic sample, and then by the time your order is ready to ship out, that's customized, it's got nice packaging, etc. So you kind of can't really sell the sample, or you wouldn't really want to. Yep. It's not gonna usually be as polished and as finished as your main order. And there's no real advantage to it anyway, because it's like, like trying to get this one lowly unit in to make an extra $20 doesn't really make sense. You would probably spend more money trying to like get that unit into Amazon and so forth. So,
yeah.
No. but one thing I would say is like what a lot of suppliers will do is they'll often reimburse you for the cost of your sample if you buy or if you proceed with the order. Or I've had...
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I've had that happen in the past where it's like, oh, it might be $100 or $150 to get the sample, or maybe like, I don't know, whatever, $50 or something for the sample itself and then shipping, and then they might reimburse you for one or both of those costs if you go with the full order. So that's always worth asking so that you can at least get that little bit of a discount back.
It's a good idea. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so our next supplier-related question is it okay if I ask the supplier to ship my orders to me so I can check them first, and then I will send them to Amazon once I'm satisfied?
Yeah.
Yes, if that's just a couple hundred units. If you can store 1,000 units, then okay, that's fine. And maybe you do want to do that for your first order, so I wouldn't suggest against doing that. However, if you don't have the capacity, that's going to be a lot on you if you're ordering thousands of units. So it doesn't hurt to do that. Just make sure you're obviously able to like intake that. Make sure you're not living in an apartment or something.
Yeah.
But you could also hire companies that go out and inspect it, especially for your first order. I know you have experience using that and reaching out to a few companies. So what are your thoughts on inspecting yourself versus a company versus, I guess, not doing it even on your first order?
Yeah. This is pretty common. I've like heard a lot of people do this in the past. They just want the peace of mind of seeing the product, and I definitely understand that. Particularly if you're like a new seller, you want to like know that it's real, and it's exciting to kind of like see your product, and not just to see one product. It's really cool to see like all of these boxes and be like, wow, I've grown up. I'm like doing a real business now. It's like it's a cool feeling. I've never done that. I mean, mostly just because I have lived in Australia and I've traveled, and I live in the States now, but it's never been an option for me because I've lived internationally, which is the great thing about Amazon is that you don't have to touch the inventory. And so for my lifestyle, it was preferable for me to never touch it. But if you have the ability to, let's say you live in the US and you're selling in the US and you've got that option, I think you can go about it. I would suspect that when you add up all the expenses, by the time you get it to your place and then like getting it reshipped, it's probably gonna cost you a little more in shipping and handling, etc. So
good point.
I think that is probably a downside. I don't know the math, but I'm assuming that, just any extra stops and handling, etc., is probably going to bump up the price. So that would be the downside. If you did really want to do it, maybe you just do it for the first shipment to inspect more of the units yourself, and then maybe you're happy after that and you don't do it. But what Jake mentioned earlier is a really good option. That's to get a third-party inspection company. You would typically do this in China if that's where you're getting it manufactured, and they'll go out and inspect a portion of your units, and they'll do a whole bunch of like proper checks. It wouldn't just be you like opening the box. They test a whole bunch of very specific things, and they give you a very detailed report. So that's probably like actually ideal, because if you get it and there are issues, it's like it's now at your house. And it's gonna be very difficult to fix, 1,000 units. So it's more ideal to get that done in China before it gets shipped out, and that way your supplier can fix anything before it gets sent to you. But if you do wanna still inspect it yourself, I think that's fine. Just be aware that it might be cost a little more.
Yeah, I just noticed, so Jennifer on Instagram just asked, do you know the name of the company that you could recommend for inspections?
Yeah, the one that we've used a few times now is, what's it called?
Is it Kuma?
Yeah, Kima.
K or Q.
Inspection company. I'm gonna put this in.
Cool. So yeah, for those on YouTube who can't see that comment, then it's QIMA. That's how you spell the inspection company.
I'm just gonna
QIMA. Oh, there, you're doing both. Cool.
I didn't. I just put the word. Or
Even better.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So definitely check them out. That's who I think we used, right, to inspect ours.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Where do we go next?
Awesome. Next supplier question is just curious how many individuals or companies have issues sourcing the products from suppliers, especially when you're first starting out. In my opinion, this is one of the toughest things to get past and to be comfortable doing because you're not doing it as much as you're doing product research, right? So like when you're doing product research and you're new to it, it might feel weird, but then once you start doing it, you're using an extension maybe to help you navigate that process. It becomes repetition, muscle memory, and it feels really good. With supplier outreach and contacting suppliers, it's always something different. So it's always a new process. It's always something, you're getting curveballs left and right, looking at different products, different suppliers, and it's a different game. However, everybody has issues doing it, especially when you first start. So hopefully that makes you feel better. The more you do it, the more you reach out to your supplier, whether it's you're just finding suppliers or contacting your supplier that you're working with, the more you do that, the better it's going to be. You're essentially just trying to build a process. And once you have that process in place, it's going to be so much more comfortable for you. So hopefully you feel better if you're in a similar place where I was when I first started out, but the more you do it, the more you go throughout the process, trust me, you'll feel a lot better as you go through it.
Yeah, so I think long story short, it's like it's natural for you to be feeling that. It just is a trickier, harder process, but just over time, it'll get easier to deal with, like Jake said.
Yeah.
Cool. All
awesome.
right.
So now we're on to step 3. So this is how to pick what to sell on Amazon. So you did your product research, you reached out to suppliers to get quotes, samples, and now you have a ballpark figure of what it's going to cost to sell, as well as you know the quality of the product, so whether or not you like them. And let's say now your list is down to like 5 or 10 products. The first question here is, should you stay away from products that are being sold by the company that makes the product? So essentially, like, should you stay away if you figure out your manufacturer is also selling that product, or maybe even selling it to another Amazon seller, which every category has that. But what are your thoughts on essentially, should you avoid that if your manufacturer, if you can, I guess, verify that, is also selling?
I mean, essentially, I would just say do the math. Like, how much are they selling it at? Like, if you're competing with them, if they're selling it at a lower price because they can source it for cheaper than what they'll offer it to you.
Of course,
basically, you just need to see if, like, you know, the economics make sense. But if you see, like, oh, I would have to sell at $30 for this to be profitable, but they're selling it at like 22, then it's like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away. But if they're still like sort of competitive, then I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. And then as for manufacturers that are selling to other Amazon businesses, then I wouldn't worry about that at all. It's like pretty much every supplier out there is gonna be supplying to different Amazon sellers, so that's just normal and going to be very common. Yeah,
definitely. Cool. And it's all about really differentiating your product, doing better marketing. So you could compete with your manufacturer if the price is even.
Yeah.
Don't let that scare you just because they're also selling. You could beat them. So this next product research question essentially is, someone suggested me to sell products over $50, so I have high profit margins, which I can use to go aggressive on PPC advertising, only with a budget of around $7,000. What are the pros and cons of essentially selling a product over $50?
Yeah, I mean, if you can sell higher priced products, there's a lot of advantages. Generally, you're gonna have a bigger profit margin and it's gonna be less competitive just because it takes a lot more capital, which brings me to the downside. It's gonna take a lot more capital because if you're selling products that are like 50 plus, instead of maybe sourcing a product for, I don't know, $5 to $10 per unit, it's probably gonna be double that. It could be like $20 per unit or 20 to 25 or something. So it's gonna cost you a lot more upfront.
Right.
But yeah, that's the trade-off. I think if you've got the money to do it, then, you know, if I had unlimited money, that's probably where I would start with like higher priced products for the reasons that I mentioned, better profit margins and less competitive. So I don't know about the PPC side. I think
it's a great strategy though. So you're trying to just create more margin for advertising because it sounds like you're aware that it's going to take a lot of advertising spend, especially early on, to just get some sales out the door. Especially on a product that's over $50. Like, ask yourself, when's the last time you bought a product on Amazon over $50? Or how many of those products have you bought in the past month versus products under $10 or $20? So expect less sales volume, but in your case, higher profit margins. And that's a great trade-off, I think. Don't let the amount of sales, like the number, like we always say, try to hit 300 monthly sales per month. But in a lot of cases, 200 is even better if you're selling at a higher price point or a better profit margin. So yeah, don't feel bound to just like hitting a certain threshold in terms of units. It's all about the dollar return you get back and the percentage you get in net margin. So I think that's a great idea, and you're on the right track thinking about the PPC strategy, especially early on.
All right, I'm going to jump in with a couple of quick questions from Instagram. Nice. The first one here is, how long does it take for a product to start selling? We're going to give some very generalized advice here because it will differ, but what is the advice? I was going to say, like, usually I would say 2 to 3 months is maybe like the window from when you first start looking to the point where you've got units in Amazon that you're able to start selling. Keep in mind though that, like we've mentioned, those are probably going to be discounted just because you want to kind of get them selling, get them noticed. You're probably going to be spending on PPC. So yeah, I think like within 2 to 3 months, if you decided today I'm going to sell on Amazon, I think within 2 to 3 months you could have a listing with inventory in Amazon. And then I think there's another good follow-up question here. How much time to get success in FBA? It depends on like your gauge of success, but as again, general rule of thumb, I would say it's going to be at least a year before you're profitable. Again, very general. It could be more, could be less. But as I mentioned, your first shipment, you're most likely not going to be profitable. You're probably going to be deliberately breaking even to basically get more sales, to build up your reviews. And you're going to probably need to do that for a few shipments. And or it's like each shipment you're going to become more profitable as you're going to be able to raise your price as you get more reviews and more rankings. But then you're going to sort of have this amount of money that you're going to need to be paying back. If you go on our YouTube channel, we've got a video, I think it's like our 1-year review of selling our washable pee pads on Amazon. And we actually have like a really great graph from Jungle Scout Sales Analytics where you basically see, I think we lost like $5,000 over the first 2 or 3 months.
Might even be a little bit more, but yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say $5,000. And then after that point, we were making profit, but you know, we needed to sort of recoup the money that we lost in the initial investment. And I can't remember how long in total, whether it was like 6, 8, 10 months or something, but it took a little while before we finally like broke even, and then we were like becoming actually profitable.
And then it's also like helpful to know too, it's like, yeah, we did lose, it's called $5,000, but we still had enough money to order more inventory. So we're still getting money back from Amazon, of course. So if we spent $10,000 in inventory, we got $5,000 back still. So we still use that to fund the next round of inventory. So it's scary to say like, oh, I don't want to lose money. But think about it, especially when you're just launching your product early on, like you are losing that money, but you're still getting money back to buy the next round of inventory.
You're investing the money. I think we should like change it. It's an upfront investment that you're recouping later on. And then the only other point of that, or the reason why I said 12 months or a year is any profit that you do make, you should forget about taking it out of the business. I would say don't take any money out of your business for at least a year. You want, inventory is expensive, and one of the biggest downsides and like challenges with an Amazon business is cash flow. You really want lots and lots of cash. That's what you're going to need to, launch a new product or to scale, or if anything comes up in your business. So when you do start making profit, then avoid the temptation to like take that out and personally just don't pay yourself. Keep reinvesting into the business, and it's going to grow quicker. If you take money out too soon, then the business has got a high likelihood of failing. So keep that in mind. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea around like how long to be successful.
Good question. Awesome.
All right, just let's see. All right, I think we can move forward here. The Jungle Scout team's killing it in the chat here, answering questions.
Alrighty, so our next question here about product research is, during product research, if a product within a niche has multiple ads, so sponsored ads, that land in the top 10, let's say 5 out of the top 10 products are sponsored, is that a sign that it's too competitive? So they're basically looking at a search results page, seeing a bunch of sponsored product ads, and maybe thinking that it's gonna be too competitive. I would say no. Every single search term that has volume on it should have sponsored ads on there. Amazon's of course making money from there, so they're always gonna show ads regardless of if it's a strong or a weak niche. So don't let the number of sponsored products or those specific products sway you. You always wanna look at the organic listing. So we recommend whenever you're doing data analysis or looking at sales estimates on any search page, just ignore those sponsored products because people are jumping the line that have no business being there. And sometimes those products are just completely irrelevant. Amazon's testing or they're using your preferences to insert products in there. So it's very dynamic. What you search and what I search, even if it's the same keyword, will look totally different. And geographically, that they do that as well. So they change things up. So filter off in the Jungle Scout extension the sponsored ads, so that way the data set is just looking at organic products, but you can also just look at the organic products themselves. Just completely ignore sponsored. Don't let that cloud your judgment whether you should sell in a niche or not. Yeah, you'll get there once you start selling, but in terms of like using that for sponsored ads, but don't let that sway your product research process.
Awesome. What do we got next?
Yeah, so now we're into step 4. This is how to set up your Amazon business. You did product research, got a supplier, you know what you're gonna sell, and now you're actually looking at Seller Central and figuring out how to set it up. The first question here is, one of the best, or 2 quick questions they asked. The question is, I live in Canada, but I wanna sell in the US. Do I create my LLC in Canada or the US? We'll start there and then I'll add in the second question. So yeah, what are your thoughts there? It's like they wanna sell in the US, but they live in Canada. Where should they set up their LLC?
This is not business advice, but from my understanding as a layperson, you can do either.
Yeah.
I faced the same thing because I lived in Australia, and essentially what I discovered is like, I could have done either, and I actually have done both now. I think when I first started selling, I ended up setting up a company in Australia. Now that I live in the US, I've now set one up, an LLC here in the US, but you don't have to be in the US to set up an LLC from my understanding. So I think the best thing would be to consult someone to kind of get the best legal structure, but I believe that you could do either. You could set up a Canadian company, or you could set up a US LLC. I think setting up a US LLC is very, very popular, even for people that don't live in the country, but I can't say definitively which one's gonna be better. You would need to kind of get some advice on that.
That's probably the same answer for the second part of the question. Do I use my Canadian banking or create a new bank in the US? It's probably the same exact answer. Probably want to really Google that or talk to somebody that's done it before.
What I would say on that is like, maybe your Canadian bank might be fine as long as you have access to US dollars. I'm assuming probably in Canada you do have those balances, but that was the biggest challenge for me selling on the selling in the US was getting a US bank account, because without being a citizen or having residency here, you're not. It's not easy to get a US bank account, and that's where solutions like Wise or Payoneer are really helpful. These are like global companies where you can essentially set up a US bank account or balance no matter where you live, or pretty much anywhere you live. And then that way you get paid in US dollars, and then typically you're gonna be paying your supplier in US dollars. For a while, I was utilizing Australian dollars, which was terrible because I would lose money on the money from selling would get converted into Australian dollars, and then I had to convert it back into US dollars to send it to my supplier. So like, just to give you an example, let's say I got paid $1,000. By the time that got converted into Australian and then back to US, it might be like, now it's only $900.
Right.
And so finding a US bank account was really important to not lose money. So that's probably the main thing, as long as you figured out your structure and then make sure that you've got a business account that supports US dollars.
That's awesome. Sweet. Awesome. So our next question here about setting up your Amazon account is, I need details on brand names. Almost all of the products are already branded. How do I find ones that are not? So I assume this is about like trademarking and you're trying to find a unique brand name, but the ones you come up with are just taken. That's okay. Don't put too much thought power into your brand name. Of course, it's important and you want to think about it very carefully, but don't let that stop you. It might be a little roadblock, but hopefully it's only like a couple hours or a couple of days. Don't think about it too hard. Yeah, so just come up with something. You know, we actually showed a video where you can use ChatGPT to help you be creative. If you have like a writer's block or you just can't think of anything creative, ChatGPT can help you think of some cool ones. I don't think it can see what's trademarked already, but don't let your brand name being taken stop you. You can just think of something slightly different. No one is going to care that much if it's not like the best brand name ever. So don't let that stop you.
Yeah, I can't remember now in the video. I think we probably gave a couple of examples of a couple of websites where it'll just like generate names for you. Cool. And then I think like at least one of those websites, I can't remember the name offhand, but I think it also does checks as well to basically say like whether that domain is available and whether those social handles are available. That's probably the only other thing. The name itself doesn't matter, but just use a website that like the one that I'm pretty sure that we do suggest in the video to, check if you can get the domain and the social handles. And I would recommend just purchasing the domain and just setting up those social accounts. Because if you want to sell the business later on, those become very, very valuable. You definitely want to own the domain. You don't need to build a website. You don't need to build a social media presence, but just owning them is a good idea. But like Jake said, the actual name itself doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Cool. So this next question is, should I have a company to place an order with the manufacturer? So I believe this is a question like, should you form a company, like an LLC or anything, to work with the manufacturer? I'd say you don't need to. A lot of manufacturers will like you to if they're really big and experienced, but you definitely don't need to. That's a nice to have cost. So if that's a barrier to entry or you just don't have that much in your budget to form that LLC, which is a couple $100 usually, you don't need that at all.
Yeah, just the same as like getting started on setting up Seller Central and getting started on Amazon. You can begin as an individual and then you can shift at any point to setting up a company. It's the same with ordering from a manufacturer. Yeah, like Jake said, some of the bigger ones might care a little bit more, but in my experience, like I could just buy as an individual. They don't care too much, at least in my experience.
You can always act like a company. It's a good strategy to feel bigger than you actually are. But you don't need to actually set up an LLC. Great. All right, do we want to take any live questions before we get to the next?
Yeah, just taking a look and got a question here from Jay Williams. How do I go about buying a successful Amazon business? How do I find the best point of contact details for the sellers? I'm not super experienced with this, but Jake, you actually recently joined, what was it, Empire Flippers?
Yes, yeah, that's a good one.
On a live stream. So I would recommend checking out Empire Flippers. That's their thing. They help you with buying and selling Amazon businesses. So I would recommend checking them out. They're friends of ours. And otherwise I don't really have any other advice because I haven't done it myself. You
could try if they're not on Empire Flippers to just find who's working there. LinkedIn's a good way to find someone's name or who works at companies. If Google failed you, of course. So maybe just try find who's working there and reach out to them if they're not on a site like Empire Flippers.
Awesome. Just jumping in the chat here to see what questions that we might have. See someone saying ChatGPT is the best when it comes to brand names like we're talking about. Oh, and for product descriptions, absolutely. Move Indifferent says, tired of getting hit with IP complaints. I don't know if I've got any advice for that, unfortunately. Oh, you also have a question here, is private label easier? I would say no. Private label is harder. It's sort of like harder, but better rewards at the end of the day. So you could get started quicker doing, probably the quickest thing is doing like retail arbitrage or online arbitrage, where it's like, today I could like drive to Walmart or whatever and like find something that's discounted there and then go list it and sell it on Amazon today. That's probably the quickest business model. Wholesale is also relatively quick as well because you don't have to come up with the product. And then private label has the steepest learning curve because you need to come up with a product, a brand name, you need to get it manufactured, you got to go through all of these steps which are outlined in How to Sell on Amazon. It's our preferred model though, because at the, what was I going to say, like the end of the rainbow or something? But ultimately, you own your own brand, unlike wholesale or arbitrage. You own your own brand, and your profit margins should be a lot better because you own your brand and you can set your own prices. You're not reselling someone else's product and they're taking a cut as well. So, yeah. Private label isn't easier. It's probably the hardest business model on Amazon, to be truthful, but it's the most rewarding.
Definitely.
Cool. All right, what do we got next here?
All right, so we're into step number 5 in the How to Sell on Amazon, and this is about Amazon FBA packaging, labels, and barcodes. So once you have your product basically made, how can you ask your supplier to put on the right labels and get it all ready to go into Amazon FBA? So the first question here is a very, very popular question. It's one of like the biggest, this is one of the biggest like questions we get asked in this video, is about FN SKU barcodes. So the question is, do I need an FN SKU barcode on the master carton or on individual boxes? And so she has an example here. For example, I have 500 boxes in 50 cartons. Do I need 500 FN SKUs or 50? And the answer to that is every single product needs the FN SKU barcode. So
yeah, it's always so hard to explain this though, but each individual unit needs an FN SKU barcode, but it's the same barcode for the same product.
Right. I'm trying to find like a prop.
I don't know. So like if you've got two variations, like these are two different products, clearly they're two different colors. Each one of these will have its own FN SKU barcode. I'm gonna just, for simplicity, say this is barcode 1 and this is barcode 2. So each of these will need it. If I have 500 of this black mug, it's gonna need 500 FN SKU barcodes, but each one is barcode 1.
Right.
So each one does need, its own barcode, but it's the same barcode if it's for the same product.
Yes.
Is that just maybe the first part of it, and then?
Yeah, and so essentially, to your point, just like if it's the exact same product, every single product needs a barcode on it, but it can be the exact same. But if you have two different products, then there's going to be two different barcodes.
Yeah, and now the packaging, you're asking about like the master carton or the individual boxes, and I'm going to interpret that as a box has all of your individual units in it. So. Again, we've established that each individual mug here, it could be in a little box, it's got its own packaging. It needs an FN SKU barcode, barcode 1, and they've all got the same barcode. Now, if I've got like 20 of these inside of a giant box, your master carton, that also needs some labels on it. The first one it's going to need is a shipping label. When you set up a shipment into Amazon, it's going to generate the number of labels based off of how many, you have to tell it like, okay, I'm gonna ship 50 boxes and each box has 20 units in it. It will then give you 50 shipping labels, and each of those shipping labels needs to go on each of the big boxes with 20 units in it. Then additionally, depending on how you ship your product, if you're doing like, what is it? LTL or like a truck shipment or something, or you need pallets, then it will additionally give you some pallet labels, I think, which you can stick on. I think you follow the instructions, but essentially those would be additional labels that just go on the big cartons.
Yeah, to summarize what Lenny said too, it's like once you go through that shipping plan, once you're actually telling Amazon you're gonna ship a product in, they're gonna have everything ready for you to print out. So you'll need a product label, so FN SKU, you'll need a box label, and you'll need a pallet label. So 3 different types of labels, and they're all able to be printed on that one page. So as you go through that process, the shipping plan process, we have videos on YouTube that will show you how to go through that process. You'll be able to print all those off. The product box and the pallet labels will all be there for you to print out. So the 3 different labels, hopefully that helps.
Yep. Yeah, got a couple of comments here from Moving Different for private label. For barcodes, you can use GS1. Yes. Absolutely. I think we've got some more questions on that.
Yes, definitely.
Someone else asked, is UPC the same as GS1? They're connected. GS1 is just where you buy the UPC barcode. Right. So they're connected. UPC is the name of the type of barcode that you need to create your listing, and GS1 is the website, essentially, or body that you buy it from.
Yep.
And Moving Different just also confirmed for us, yeah, 2 different variants equals 2 different barcodes. Awesome. Perfect. Alrighty.
Great. So our next question here is, how can I purchase UPC barcodes without a brand name, as it requires a brand name on the checkout? This one I know you can do. I'm trying to remember how. I think we have an article on it. If you want to go to Jones Scout's website and go to our resources in the blog, if you type in this question here or ask like.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're thinking about creating a listing without a brand
or buy
name.
It from GS1 potentially.
I don't know for sure, so don't hold me to this, but I think you just put in a brand name. I don't think it's like this. It needs to be some brand name that's like.
Or
registered
your name too.
Yeah, you just put in the name. I don't think it matters. I could be wrong there, okay? Yeah. But you know, like when I first started and bought UPC barcodes, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had to put in a brand name, but it just would have gone through no matter what I put in, or I might have just put in my own name. But I don't think you need to do anything official before you check out. It will ask for your brand name, but just put something in there with your own name.
Good point. And then to get on Amazon, you can apply for a GTIN exemption, where basically you're just an unknown or unregistered brand until you eventually decide to get one if you go down that route.
Yeah.
And that's what we have an article over on the Jones Scout website to help you with.
Okay.
So this next question now is, I just started a new brand as private label. Do I need a GS1 barcode or can I go with a GTIN exemption? So that's what we just talked about. You can do both. You can use a GS1 barcode or you can use a GTIN exemption. You'll still need a barcode. However, just look up that process. I can't describe it off the top of my head, but essentially with a GTIN exemption, you can use, I believe it's just like your GS1 UPC barcode to get started on Amazon without a brand name. So you can do either one with or without the GTIN exemption. Cool. Do you order the codes before you order the products?
Yes, essentially. So you, I mean, I guess it's unclear because it's like you can do it either way. Basically, you need to order the barcodes in order to create your listing. You need to order UPC barcodes in order to create your listing on Amazon, in order to create your shipment and actually send products in. You can actually place an order with your supplier and get them to be physically making your product without doing any of that. But before your supplier can actually ship those products into Amazon, you need to have done all of those steps.
Right.
So you don't necessarily have to do one before the other. Oftentimes, I'm just very focused on getting the product into production, because I know that it's gonna take at least 30 days to make the product. So it's like, okay, I just wanna focus on this one thing, go back and forth with my supplier, figure out what needs to get made, etc., and get the clock ticking on like, okay, cool. Now I've got 30 days to set up everything else because, you know, the manufacturer's working on making the product. So sometimes I take that approach where I just kind of get that process started. Now there's time to create your listing and just mess around with like making that as optimized as possible. But yes, you definitely need to order your UPC barcode, set up your listing before it can be shipped into Amazon.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, another question here about FN SKUs. Do I need to create FN SKU for each of the products within one parcel box? So we answered this already. Yes, every single product needs a barcode, an FN SKU barcode slapped on it. And the only difference is if you have 2 different variations of it, they need 2 different barcodes. But yes, every product technically needs to have an FN SKU barcode on the packaging.
Cool.
Yep. Great. So can we answer that question? So this next question here is, I think we answered that same question again. Okay, cool. So maybe we answer some live questions. Maybe.
All right.
And if you have any questions, guys, still on this, I know it's a very confusing subject, but Lenny does a really good job of visualizing this on our YouTube channel. We have a all about barcodes video. If you just head over to our videos tab and scroll down, you'll see that video a little bit down. But definitely check out that video if you're still kind of confused about that process.
Absolutely. All right. Just going in Instagram here. Question: How to price your stuff with your own brand? So yeah, if you're selling your own brand, you need to set your own pricing. Very general advice here. Kind of gauge it off of the market. So yeah. I like to look at like who are your competitors and essentially try to figure out what is the highest price, what is the average price that most people are selling at, and sort of maybe like what's the lowest price, and kind of have all of those price points in mind. Then ask yourself, what type of product do I have? Is mine pretty similar to everyone else and I need to be competing in the middle? Or is my product, say, a premium product that I'm aiming to charge higher than everyone else because I believe that, you know, mine offers more value and that people will buy it despite its being higher? So that's kind of generally how I would do it. As we mentioned before, when you're launching, you most likely need to be on the lower end of that. But then just for your main pricing, yeah, I would kind of compare the value of, you know, your product to everyone else's in either the middle range or in the top range if yours is premium. I don't know if you've got any other thoughts.
No, that's how I do it.
Special labels and things.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm not well versed in it, but I'm pretty certain that like it's laid out when you create the listing, or you can definitely access that information. I would,
especially if you're selling in the for the kid, and if a kid essentially is going to use your product, there's helpful websites out there that will list all the things you need to do, and it's testing. There's a lot of different requirements. I wouldn't let that hold you back because that is like a barrier for a lot of people. But look that up ahead of time, because you might be unfamiliar with some of the other things you need to do outside of just like the polybag choke warning. There might be some actual like manufacturing or product testing needed to be done there.
Great. There's a question from earlier in the chat. Hello guys, how can I get my private label brand approved by Amazon without registering trademark? And there's actually a helpful sort of follow up here from Ample Yang, who says, sometimes I'll write NC or something for a random brand, just a trick for the Amazon system. Yeah, what is it that you put like NA or something in the, when you're creating a listing, if you don't have a brand registered brand, I think you can put like, is it like NA or something like that you can put in?
It's like NA unknown even, I think. I can't remember the actual word for it.
Yeah, you can probably Google it. But
yeah, and again, we have an article on that. Type in GTIN exemption on Jungle Scout, the website. So go to junglescout.com, type in GTIN exemption, and it'll find a blog post that has this information. It's one of those that you can do. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into our next questions here on how to place your first order.
Yeah, so step 6 in the video, once you got everything ready, you just need to place that order, get it shipped into Amazon. So the question here is, I want to ask that when you complete your analysis and you're ready to launch your product, should we go with testing units or not? So maybe this is not actually talking about inspecting. It's more like, should we order a low amount first and just test and see if it sells? I think that's a good idea. There's definitely 2 approaches to launching: just going all in, or you're very unsure and you want to test it first. However, just keep in mind that test is not going to be a good indicator because you're new. You don't have any reviews yet, no ranking, so it is going to be a slower build to the top. So if you're low on funds, I think that's a great idea just for the sake of keeping your cash and having it to use in other places or as a backup. But if not, then I would say just go for it. Just in understanding that you're not going to sell as much as you are going to sell in a year from now or half a year from now.
Yeah, it's one strategy that I've heard of called like I don't know, mini launch or something, where it's like, maybe I have, let's say like $1,500, and like rather than launching one product with that, I'm gonna do $500 towards 3 different products. I'm gonna see which one, sticks basically, and then I'm going to do a full launch of that product. So it is a strategy that I've never done, but I think it makes sense to me. But just note that like taking that approach, whether you're doing it with multiple products or even one, it's gonna give you the ability to test the market and see whether that product sells. if the answer is yes, you will need more funds to launch it. So you're going to need to come back to the sort of more full launch step anyway. This is just more, I would describe it more as just, testing the market and validating that the product is a good idea.
It could also be good too, look, quick note here is to see the actual cost of selling it, because you're only gonna know the full cost once you actually do. You're gonna see little fees that you didn't know that were gonna pop up. So I can see for that reason, a micro launch being a good idea.
Yeah, you learn a lot from just doing the steps.
Definitely. Cool, next question here is, hey, at an hour in the video, you mentioned that an inspection is paid for until it passes. Is this paid for by me or my supplier?
Yeah, so, potentially we worded that wrong. So it's not, so who pays for the inspection?
Yeah.
You pay for the inspection.
I think we mentioned in the video, if you can include in your contract with them that if it doesn't pass, then they pay for it.
Yes, so that's not just a standard thing where your supplier is going to pay for it.
Right.
Generally, you will pay, well, no, I'm gonna say you will pay for your inspection.
Yeah.
That's an optional step. It's not, generally offered by your supplier. It's like, you need to initiate that. I'm gonna hire a third-party inspection company to come check this product. You pay for that. However, you can separately negotiate with your supplier and say, I'm gonna get this inspection. If it fails, you need to be willing to pay for additional inspections until it does pass. So don't wanna give the impression that that's just a done thing. That's like a negotiation with your supplier that at Jungle Scout we've successfully done in the past, and it just provided more incentive for the supplier to make sure that they prioritize you, they make sure that your product is good and that there are no mistakes and no issues with it. But they don't pay for it by default.
Good question though. All right, next question is, I received an email from Amazon that said they needed CPSIA compliance testing documentation from a CPSC approved laboratory.
Oh gosh.
What is this? And this is my duty to get this, or is it the supplier's? What if the supplier does not know what this is? So I'm curious what category this is, or what claim is in your listing that we need this testing done, but most likely there is a claim that needs to be further tested or at least proved. So this is something you should definitely ask your supplier if they don't know. And this is something that you definitely need, then that might be a red flag on your supplier. But I don't know, because I don't have experience with this exact compliance testing documentation, but that's something that your supplier should hopefully be aware of, or at least that you can talk to them about if they're not aware of. But
I don't know whose responsibility it is to get that done. However, if you just Google CPSIA compliance or any other types of compliances that are being requested, there are generally, you'll find labs for that. If I just Google that right now, I've got like a bunch of results of just like labs that test specifically that. So whether you pay for it or the supplier pays for it, that's the way, I could go in and now I could, book in to get my product tested. So probably finding the labs to do these tests, I'm assuming shouldn't be too much of an issue, but I'm not quite sure whose responsibility it is to have that paid for. It is just essentially a discussion with your supplier. It's like it probably should be them, but they will probably negotiate with you, and maybe you can come to an agreement where you share the cost or something.
Cool. Well, now we're moving on to step 7, which is how to ship your products to Amazon.
All right. Well, I'll jump into Instagram and then YouTube questions real quick. There's one here. I'm a full stack developer. Are there any openings at Jungle Scout? We often have openings. Just go to our website, junglescout.com/jobs, and you'll see what we have available. Another question, how can I find winning products to sell on Amazon? I highly recommend after this live stream, go watch how to sell on Amazon for beginners video on YouTube. That's where we're grabbing a lot of these questions from, and that will show you how to find winning products.
And if that didn't help, we have a full playlist on YouTube, a product research playlist, like hundreds of videos, I assume, or tons of videos that will show you how we're finding products to sell on Amazon.
Another question here from Instagram. How long does it take for Amazon to update your inventory after they received it? It does vary at different times of the year. For example, in Q4, when things are absolutely crazy there, it can take, I don't know, it can take 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know what it has been recently. Would you say like a week is sort of like a good estimate of like from the point that it sort of checks in or it begins going into receiving to the point where it's fully available?
Yeah, it definitely depends too, because a lot of times Amazon will receive it at one facility and then they'll disperse it to other fulfillment centers. So yeah, you might hopefully get some that are checked in within a week or 2 within that facility that it arrived in, but oftentimes they'll spread it out across the country because you're getting sales across the country. So keep that in mind too, that they're gonna split your shipments in a lot of cases.
And what I've found is that like you just wanna like check in every day because more and more units will become available. So let's say you send in 500 units, I don't know, like maybe like 200 will become available and then like, I don't know, another 30 or 50 each day. And so it might take a little longer to, you know, even if it takes a couple of weeks for all of it to be available.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully, definitely within the first week, I would say that you'll at least have enough inventory to start selling.
Right.
So that even if it still takes another week or 2 for every single unit to be received, that you should hopefully have enough to at least kind of like get the ball rolling with sales.
Definitely.
All right, okay, jumping over to YouTube, grabbing a couple of your questions here. Okay, from Raymond, do I just need to label each item with the SKU, then add the UPS labels to the package and send it into the UPS store? So yes, we did cover this. I'd say like go back and rewatch us kind of talking through this, but yes, you need the FN SKU on each individual item. And then the UPS labels or whatever shipping company you're using needs to be on just the big carton boxes that are sending in the units. Yeah, so I think you basically got it right there. Okay, let's see. Fahim says, can we use AI for finding keywords for private label products on Amazon? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think we even like show that in our ChatGPT for Amazon sellers video, which I recommend checking out. We can we'll add the link in the description or in the pinned comment later on. But yes, you absolutely can. I would highly recommend though cross-referencing that with a tool like Jungle Scout's Keyword Scout, because the missing component is seeing how much search volume those keywords have. So using ChatGPT or some form of AI will give you directionally a lot of great data that you can use, but then you want to kind of like validate the search volume for those keywords, and you can do that with, say, Jungle Scout.
Yeah, we did that for our product. We had no idea that people were buying our pee pads because they had senior dogs, like older dogs. We were actually targeting like smaller dogs, just dogs in general. So it gave us a good idea to plug into Jungle Scout and see the search volume. So using those both together is a great idea.
All right, I'd say let's move on to some of these questions in the next category. This is a big one.
Yeah, so this is step 7 in the How to Sell on Amazon video, how to ship your products into Amazon. And so the question here is, my business is registered in North Carolina in the United States, but I want to ship my inventory from China to the FBA warehouse in California because it's more cost efficient. I would appreciate if you can answer this question. So a lot of times you're not able to set where you want to ship it to, but when you're creating your shipment plan, you're telling them where it's shipping from, and so in this case, China, and or perhaps actually, this is something you want to ask your supplier. So if they can ship it into California where you want it to be shipped in, most likely Amazon will say, okay, it's going to arrive in California. Of course, we should just put it in California. So it's really asking your supplier to ship it where you want it to be shipped. That's not a guarantee. Amazon is funny and they will split your shipments. They won't probably bring it across the country, but they might actually ask you to ship one in one spot, one in the other. There's a setting in Seller Central that you can turn that off. I think you pay a little bit more to do that. It's relatively new. But that's something you ask your supplier to send to the West Coast port, or in Texas or on the East Coast. So yeah, ask your supplier about that.
Cool. All righty. What do we got next?
Next question is, I noticed the ship from address is US on our example that we used in the video. So is it better to enter a US port location because my supplier's in China? Does the ship from location matter? So you're shipping usually from China in this example to the US, and then from there Amazon picks it up. However, you can ship directly from your supplier's warehouse in China to Amazon's warehouse.
Yeah, and in that case, it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
It mostly matters if Amazon is going to be picking it up because they need to know where to pick it up from.
Exactly.
So on that note, I don't know whether this works anymore, but I think this is what like a lot of people have done in the past. To the previous question about trying to nudge Amazon to put it in a particular direction, if you are getting it shipped from China directly into the warehouse, therefore the ship from address, I'm just going to say, is less important. If you were then to make that ship from address in the US, in California, or like close to where the side of the country that you want, there's probably a higher likelihood that when you create that shipment, that the address you get will be in the same area or close to the ship from address.
Yeah, play around with it a little bit. I think you can cancel a shipment and then within 24 hours it will refresh. So you might get different results after waiting if it's not helping you the first time. So this next question is, do I have to have an FN SKU barcode in order to create the shipping plan on Seller Central? Yes, so we talked about this earlier.
Yep.
You need that FN SKU code, which you'll get throughout the shipping process in Seller Central. But the next question here is Amazon delivery from distributor to FBA free using UPS? If not, how would I go about calculating the cost of that? So it's definitely not free.
Yeah, if it was, I wish I could find that.
Yes, it's not free. So you really just got to ask your supplier for a quote. Reach out to a freight forwarder for a quote. Amazon does have a shipping service called AGL, Amazon Global Logistics, which they're essentially a freight forwarder. But we have a video on this. It's essentially, I forget the title, it's like ways to save money on your shipping and storage. And we just talk about in that video, get quotes from everybody, and then see what the best quote is. So
yeah.
I'd recommend doing that.
I'd say specifically as well, if you're talking about the Amazon delivery or like the Amazon partnered carriers as it's referred to, you can actually go and create a shipment, and in that shipment process, you can say like, okay, my shipment's in LA or New York or wherever your shipment is, and it needs to get from here into Amazon. There is a step in that process where you can nominate and say, Amazon partnered carriers, UPS or whoever it is. You can choose that, and then it will basically generate a quote for you. So it can generate a quote, and you have to accept that quote before you get billed. So there is a sort of a sneaky way in the shipment workflow that you can estimate how much Amazon would charge you to get it from A to B. So that's like another option as well to, give you a bit of an idea of the cost.
Awesome. Our next question is, why would one pay Amazon for shipping when freight takes care of it? Or does Amazon pick the shipment up from the port? So yes, so you pay for Amazon shipping in most cases to pick it up from the port. However, we've done it ourselves just to go from our supplier in China to Amazon with no middleman, essentially, which is Amazon. So a lot of times that's more cost effective, but it really just depends on your quotes. So yeah, you could either, like we just said earlier, pick it up from the port, have Amazon do that, or any other carrier, but Amazon's usually the cheapest, or have your suppliers handle all the logistics from end to end, which we found to be, in our case at least, a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm just trying to think why you're asking that. Yeah, because maybe you're getting like confused about, do you have to do both? But like we've kind of said, it's like, no, you could just get your supplier to take care, or your freight forwarder to take care of the whole process, or you can get them to take care of the process to the US and then get Amazon to pick it up. So they're just different options. You don't have to use both or do one or the other. They're just all options.
Cool. Next question here is, the freight forwarder quote that we showed in our video, how to sell on Amazon, was over $14,000. Is that what it cost you? No. A lot of times in our videos, we're showing screen shares of us actually going through the process. But in this case, this was just a screen grab of us just like walking you through the process, not what we did for our product. We have a full playlist called the $1 Million Case Study over on YouTube, which you can watch literally going through the process, and you'll see real information on screen there. from start to finish. But in this how to sell on Amazon video, that particular screen share was just to show you the process, not what we were paying.
Yep.
Great. So the same question here was actually about the same example about the shipping date. That again was just an example, so let me skip this question. So the next question is, if the supplier is going to help me with finding the best shipping method to the US, what should I do with the freight forwarder? What is the benefit of even hiring one? The supplier asked me the fulfillment center, so what do I do in this case? So in that case, it sounds like your supplier is going to handle the end-to-end shipping, but you want to ask them that and get different quotes for all the different ways they can ship, whether it's to Amazon directly or to a port, and that's where a freight forwarder would then help you.
Yeah, I think there's just like a little bit of confusion here. It's like, again, we just said this, it's like, you don't have to you don't need a freight forwarder and to get your supplier to ship as well. It's sort of one or the other, or you collect quotes from both and you choose one over the other. It's, don't get confused. You don't need to do both of those. And then earlier in the video, I pointed out some of the benefits of working with a freight forwarder. You're probably just gonna have better communication mostly, and they're gonna be able to, if you need to answer any questions about customs or anything, usually like whoever the freight forwarder is, they'll take care of most of that. But working directly with a freight forwarder yourself is probably just gonna be, give you more information and more communication, but it might cost you a little bit more than what your supplier can offer.
Yeah, good question though. So yeah, how do I choose the best fulfillment center in the US? So that's something that you won't
we sort of answered that before. You can't really control that too much.
Yep. And then is there anything I need to do on my end when dealing with DDP shipping? So that's like end-to-end, if your supplier is gonna handle shipping from their warehouse into Amazon. Typically, no. I mean, it could depend on what they ask for. They might ask for some documentation, but I don't think...
Yeah, I'm not an absolute expert with this, but generally no. Like that's the thing with DDP is that everything's taken care of. It should be even more hands-off than FOB, EXW, or the other shipping Incoterm. So DDP, you will generally pay more, but it's sort of like all-inclusive. It's all handled for you, and that's kind of the point.
Cool. All
cool.
right.
All right, jumping over to, actually I'm here on YouTube, jumping into the comments here. Let's see. I've got, all right, Sean asked a little bit earlier, when purchasing from Alibaba, there is often a service fee for Alibaba. Have you found an optimal way to reduce additional fees? I can't really remember fees on Alibaba. I feel like I haven't come across them too much, or at least when I have, I thought they were just more so just standard payment processing costs. I don't remember any sort of specific Alibaba charges, or often what generally ends up happening is you end up sort of working with your supplier off of Alibaba. Obviously Alibaba would prefer you to be doing everything through their system, but I'm not even deliberately trying to boycott the system. It's just the UI and the chat and everything's difficult. It's easier to talk on Skype or WhatsApp or sometimes even email. And so then usually you just often will get payment details directly from your supplier, and you just pay them, whether it's wire transfer or smaller payments on PayPal or whatever. And so you usually do that off of Alibaba. If you want the trade assurance, protection, and benefit that Alibaba offers, then you do need to do it through the Alibaba platform, which have equally done that as well. And I don't remember any crazy fees, or at least in my thoughts, I thought they were just sort of standard payment processing fees that you would typically encounter. So I'm not sure. I don't have any specific advice there. Let's see, another question here. I had set for a couple of months my list price and my sales price. Recently, Amazon took off my crossed out listing price from the detail page. How can I get that back and delete the lower sales price for a while?
That one is...
I think you're good at speaking to that.
Well, so what they're mentioning is like they have a list price, and then they have a sale price, so that list price gets crossed out, and it looks like there's a really good sale going on to the customer. So what's happening is you have not sold at that list price for 90 days on Amazon. So the key to getting that list price crossed off is to at least make, I assume it's just one sale, but I'd probably just get a couple more in there. And every 90 days, you need to essentially either bump up your price again, or just do something to get you'll need to bump up your price to get a sale there. So what's happening is Amazon's saying, you have not sold at that list price in 90 days, we're gonna get rid of that. And so what you could do is bump up your list price for a couple days, run advertising, and just try to get some sales. Once you've gotten some sales at that list price, that 90-day clock resets, and now you'll get that cross again. So that's what's happened. You just haven't made any sales at that list price in the past 90 days. But it's a good strategy, especially something to do before Prime Day or any big event where you know people are gonna be on Amazon shopping. So yeah, just raise that price, get some sales, and it'll be crossed off again.
Alrighty, so jumping over to Instagram, a couple of questions here. This one is, are all sellers eligible for Amazon Prime Day offers? And any tips for that? Do you know if there's any eligibility criteria?
I think there is. I can't recall off the top of my head. It's like this for a lot of sales, like Black Friday. Your product has to have over a certain, I think, star rating. I could be wrong on that. A certain amount of inventory, that is definitely one.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact amount, but yeah, you'll see if you go to like the advertising tab, or no, the one where you get to the coupons, like it's the Prime exclusive deal or coupon. And they'll have on the right-hand side the list of requirements, or you can just go to Amazon and look up that information. There are some requirements, so the tips are just really just to follow those requirements. They're pretty basic. If you're a brand new seller, you just might not be able to meet those naturally, but you will eventually. But yeah, it's usually inventory and like quality of your product, or as an account.
So it's generally more product related. It's probably not like you need to be brand registered or anything.
I don't think so. I could be wrong on that too, but yeah, and sometimes it's like your account, so you can't have like a crazy bad account health score, or you're getting a lot of like bad feedback from buyers. But
if sellers out there haven't registered or haven't set up Prime Day offers, is that offer over at this point?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's like at least a month or two past now. I think it was in April or so.
Yeah, there was like a cutoff. So normally, what is it going to be? At least a couple of months beforehand?
Yeah, you need to start thinking about these things really early. And we even set some of ours up early, knowing we'll probably be out of stock for it. But it's okay. We've like set it up. So
I guess is there an alternative out there, like for someone right now that wants to get involved, to like set up a lightning deal or something around a similar time? It won't probably be the exact same dates, but would that be the
exact same dates? But you could set it up before, and that way you're getting people to like get your product in their shopping cart or in their shopping list, and then maybe you have like a list price so it looks like a deal. You can do coupons still. So you can still have promotions. It's not going to say Prime Day deal, but you're sure going to get benefits from having a deal, whether it's a coupon or a strike through price. So you can still benefit.
Because I guess it's like, if you have the opportunity to set it up, but any time from now until Prime Day on the 11th, I think, I'd say that you probably get a little bit of benefit there, because I know even just going on to Amazon, they're already advertising like early Prime Day deals and so forth. So consumers are probably already being trained that like deals are starting as of now. So you might still be able to kind of like capitalize on that mindset a bit.
A cool like little pro tip. I'm trying this out this year again. I did it for someone else a few years ago. A lot of people, to your point, are adding things to their shopping carts, just keeping tabs on it, so they'll revisit on Prime Day to see if they get a better deal. What you could do is, after Prime Day, do a lightning deal, capitalizing on all those people who have things in their carts, have things in their shopping list. And what that does is, a lot of people have mobile alerts enabled for anytime something's in their shopping cart or shopping list and there's a lightning deal, so a limited time deal, Amazon's like, hey, there's a product in your shopping cart or your list that has a limited time deal, and they'll get that. So you're basically just banking off of them, saving your product, and then you're just becoming top of mind when you tell them, hey, I have a lightning deal after Prime Day. A lot of people are gonna have saved items that they don't buy, so maybe a little strategy you can try. I'm gonna try it this year, so in case you didn't take advantage of Prime Day, a post-Prime Day push like that could be really helpful.
All right, I'm going to take another quick question here from Instagram before we go back to the pre-submitted ones. This one is, I'm a UK seller. Can I sell in the USA with my company in the UK by using AGL, or do I need a LLC? So maybe we break this up. So firstly, you're a UK seller. Can you sell in the US? Yes. And you can do that with your UK company. That's fine. We talked about this earlier in the video. You could use a company in the UK or you can use an LLC in the US. You can sell with either. That's fine. You mentioned AGL, Amazon Global Logistics. I'm trying to remember if there are any requirements for that, like whether you need to, I'm just trying to remember if there's any eligibility requirements for AGL. That's the part that I am not 100% certain of, whether, what you need in order to utilize AGL. But as far as just selling, yes, to all the other parts. I don't know if you know. If not, we can sort of move on.
No, I don't know, but it'll tell you as you're going through the AGL sign-up process.
Yeah, you'll find out pretty quickly whether you can sign up for it or not.
Yeah.
All right, what's our next?
Yeah, so we're on to step number 8 in the How to Sell on Amazon video. Again, if you haven't seen it, go over to YouTube, watch it. It's our first video on our homepage. And so step 8 is about creating your Amazon listing. So you got everything in, or on the way in, and now you're creating your title and all that fun stuff. So the first question here is, what should I put for their model number on the back end if it's a generic product? So she doesn't have a registered brand name and she can't move forward without filling out that section. So when you're filling out your product details, like your title and all that fun stuff, there's a lot of boring stuff in there too, like your model number, your SKU number. A lot of times these are really confusing. Really, it doesn't matter. Unless you're selling like a wholesale product where you are selling something that has like a model number out there already. But if it's your own product, you're able to create your own model and SKU. However, I would say just name those. Think about like if you were to download a CSV file of all your inventory, assuming you have 100 products, even if you're only going to sell one, make sure that you know what it is by the SKU and model number. So a lot of times, like if I'm going to sell this thing, I'll name the SKU. I don't know, like bottle silver or something like that, and the model number will be very similar. It might just add like a 1 to it, or it really doesn't matter, but just make it something that you can say, okay, I know what that product is, and then you can move on throughout the rest of your filling out your product details. So it doesn't really matter, end of the long story short.
Yeah, long story short, doesn't matter, make it up, put whatever you want to put in there, but yeah, to your point, make it
recognizable,
Yeah, easy for you to read.
Cool.
Cool.
Next question here is, hi, when you sell a 2-pack or 3-pack on your listing, do you ask the supplier to attach those 2 items together and put not for Amazon to see, so like do not separate?
Yeah.
If yes, do you put 1 FN SKU label or 2, and how many units do you say is inside, 1 or 2 units?
Yeah, I think there's like some confusion here. So just to kind of demystify this, anything you sell on Amazon, it needs to be packaged that way. If you want to sell a 1-pack of something, you obviously just send in a 1-pack. If you want to sell a 2-pack of something, it needs to be packaged that way. Amazon, you can't send in like 1,000 of these mugs all individually packaged, and then Amazon is not going to grab 2 of them for you and put them together and then sell it as a 2-pack.
Right.
However you want to sell it, it does need to be sent in that way. Little asterisks there is an option on Amazon. Actually, I'm assuming it's still there, but like virtual bundles.
Oh yeah.
Where you can take 2 separate listings and Amazon will kind of put them together. That's kind of an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you're maybe getting a little bit confused here, but yeah, generally, if you want a 2-pack, then you need to send in a 2-pack already packaged. And so now you've got 2 different products and 2 different FN SKU barcodes. You've got a 1-pack has barcode 1, and your 2-pack is now called barcode 2.
Yeah.
They're different models, different variations. Yeah, so I think that's kind of like the main thing there is that Amazon's not gonna like put together a 2-pack for you.
Yeah.
If I'm reading that right.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. The virtual bundle, by the way, is a great idea. However, at least as of now, I don't think you can advertise it. It's a weird limitation. Like you can combine products together virtually, but there's so many limitations. It's weird, but it is still a good idea. It doesn't hurt to have it up there.
Yeah, it's probably like a good idea to like help move slow selling products. So let's say that you've got 5 different colors and you're like, the blue sells really well, but you've got heaps of red left over or something like that. you could maybe say like, I'm going to do a bundle of blue and red and then discount it so that you're, trying to move some inventory that's slow moving. Like that's, I don't know, that's one example that comes to mind of like why you would utilize a virtual bundle.
Definitely. Cool. So our next question here is it important to be brand registered when you're starting? No, it's not. So it's obviously helpful. You get to have access to sponsored brand campaigns and sponsored display campaigns, videos on your listing and with ads, A+ content. There's so many different benefits that brand registry has to offer. When you're first starting out, it's absolutely not a must-have. It's a nice-to-have. So don't let that stop you. You might have a little fear of missing out, a little bit of FOMO. But trust me, if you don't have, if that $300 or no, it'd be more than $300 because you're getting an LLC done or trademark, sorry. If that's like $1,000 for you and that'd be better served with inventory, then buy the extra inventory and then eventually get that brand registry added to your account. But it's definitely not needed when you first start out.
Awesome.
So the next question here is to list on Amazon FBA a seller account. Can we use or not use Alibaba's image and videos?
No.
Or copy. So you can't use Alibaba's. Like certainly you could, but it's not recommended.
Yeah, the short answer, it's like, no, never use someone else's image, basically.
Yeah.
And even if you did try, it's just a very bad practice because it's like your main image is the main thing that you can use, that you can leverage to get people to click on your listing and other people. So I don't know why you would want someone else's image. I can maybe understand you asking from the perspective of like to get started quicker, but there are better ways. Just take photos yourself or get a photographer to do it. But no, never, you can't use someone else's image basically.
Yeah. Cool. So the question here is, can I sell multiple products under one trademark? If yes, then what types of names do you suggest for a variety of products? So this is something we talk about pretty often is, should you create a brand name that sells, sort of like locks you into a certain product, like, Jake's Pets products or Lenny's home supplies? Or should you do something like what we did with Jungle Creations? It allows us to sell anything. It doesn't constrict us. It's very broad. I think that just depends on what you want to do. Do you want to create a brand around one particular audience type, one particular type of buyer, or do you want to just sell whatever products you want, and that allows you freedom to do product research and really just go in any direction? Totally up to you. You can sell multiple products under one trademark. It doesn't need to make sense for the trademark, but just keep that in mind. Your goals about creating a brand or just selling products under a generic brand name. So it's really just up to you and what you want.
Yep. You got it.
Cool.
Alrighty. So let's see, we're just gonna, before we move on to our final section here, just gonna jump into YouTube. I have a question here from Jack. Hi, I have a DDP shipment going to Amazon in Memphis. UPS shows it arrived at their Memphis location on June 9th. Amazon shipment says they expect it on August 4th. Is this common? I would say yes if I'm picturing this right, because normally, I suppose what I would expect here is that if it arrived around June 9th, that you should receive an email from Amazon saying that it's like checked in or going into receiving close to that date, within like a couple of days or like pretty close. But then typically what I would see is that Amazon has like a date of like, expect this to be fully stocked. And yeah, that might be like a couple of months later. And so that scenario is pretty common, right?
Definitely.
What I would say if it arrived, if you got a tracking thing to say that it arrived on June 9th and like by now, June 28th, Amazon you haven't even got like a checked in email or anything, then that would probably seem kind of odd or strange to me. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree. I think that's pretty standard. Sometimes you will have to like reach out and fight with Amazon by opening a case. So hopefully that's not the case here. But I think this timeline is pretty much expected. And it also depends on the time of year. Q1 through Q3 is going to be a lot easier. As you get into Q4, it's going to be a lot busier, and you can expect longer times from check-in to basically being able to sell.
Yeah, and as we were talking about earlier, you're going to get more and more inventory added during that period.
Yes.
Amazon just gives you a date like a couple of months in the future, just I don't know why. And I don't usually worry about that date because usually like within a few days you start to get more and more inventory, and within like a week and a half or something, you've got like enough inventory. It's like, oh, I've got a few hundred units out of my total 1,000, that you've got enough units that you can get started selling. And, you know, by the time, yeah, like you've got plenty of units to start selling, and it doesn't matter if it takes an extra, you know, few weeks or whatever for the rest to officially be stocked.
Yeah.
Alrighty, just jumping into Instagram real quick. Is there any service from Jungle Scout that helps in person to opening an Amazon selling account? No, unfortunately, we don't offer any sort of one-on-one type services. You know, our goal is just to help as many customers and people out there as possible, which is why we do things like these live streams where we can try to help as many people as we can at once. We just don't have the manpower, and it'd be very hard to like help every single individual person. But you know, I'm sure you can probably find freelancers and people that would be able to work with you one-on-one if you need that.
Definitely.
All right, let's jump into how to launch your product on Amazon. Always a fun section.
Yeah, so this is step 9 in our video. The first question is when you click the button in Seller Central to request a review. So you're asking someone after they bought your product to leave a review for you. Does it use the customer's name? And same question for when I send these emails using Jungle Scout instead of Seller Central. So yeah, so just for context, if you're not aware, when you sell a product, you have like 30 days, I believe, after they receive it at their doorstep to ask them for a review. And in Jungle Scout, we automate that process that you normally have to go in manually and press each and every order. And with Jungle Scout, you just press this one button. Every time you get an order, it will send that out for you. So that's called review automation within Jungle Scout. And so when you do request these reviews, I think it probably is including their name because it's Amazon sending out that email. It's not Jungle Scout sending it out. We're automating Amazon's process essentially. So I can't recall if it uses a name or not, but I assume it would say the account name that they bought as like the opener.
Yeah, I mean, sort of reading between the lines here, I think the question is really like trying to figure out like what's the most creative, customized type like way to email the customer. Is it doing it through Seller Central or is it doing it through Jungle Scout?
Yes.
The answer is that they're exactly the same thing. Jungle Scout isn't sending emails, just to be clear. We're just automating the process within Seller Central. So we're just saving you time having to go in and click that button. So it's the same thing, except you don't have to manually go in and click. So I would definitely recommend using Jungle Scout because if you get lots and lots of orders, it's very time consuming to do. It's gonna save you a lot of time. In terms of the name, like you said, I'm pretty sure it will say like, hi such and such. It has, I think probably in the video, we would actually have an example screenshot that kind of shows that, I would imagine, or in some of our videos we do. It's fairly generic. But yeah, it's not something that you can customize. There's no version of this email where you can customize it or that you can get their email if that's kind of what you're thinking. But it's just something that, yeah, it's worthwhile doing a set and forget by using a tool like Jungle Scout. And, you know, end of the day, it's gonna help increase your review rate.
Awesome. So we got another question here. It says, okay, potentially stupid question. There's no stupid questions. When a Vine reviewer has reviewed my product, do they keep my product for free or do they send it back to Amazon so that it can be sent out again to another Vine reviewer? No, so yeah, when you use the Amazon Vine program, you're essentially giving up your product for free in exchange for a review. And to me, I think that's an awesome deal, especially when you're first starting out. I mean, those reviews are worth money. I would pay, even right now as a seller who's not brand new, I would actually pay $5, $20, even the price of my product for a review right now. It's not guaranteed to be a good review, but usually those Vine reviewers are awesome. They'll leave photos or include some good like context, which in a lot of cases includes like your most valuable keywords in the review. So it's really worth it. But you will have to essentially give up the cost of your product and you won't be able to get that back.
Yeah. It's the value that you're getting back far exceeds the cost of your product. Like,
definitely.
When you understand how vital those reviews are, particularly when you're getting started, then it's a very, very cheap cost to get a high quality review. So yes, you're correct about it being that cost.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So next question is, why do you recommend to lower the actual product price a bit and offer a coupon? Isn't it more powerful if you just stick with the full price of your product without lowering it? and then do the whole discount to your break-even price as a coupon, because then the coupon would amount to a large and it would look like a bigger discount. So basically, like, should you just like use a coupon, or should you use a combination of lowering your price and a coupon?
Yeah. We were just kind of giving different examples there. I think what you're mentioning, I think you're on the right track. Like, I think that's very valid, and like you could do that instead.
Yeah.
Keep it at your same price. Let's say I want to sell at $30. Actually, I think that was kind of our example, like with our real life example, washable pee pads. Our long-term goal was to sell at $30. We basically wanted a discount down to $20 to launch it. I think we did actually do it. We lowered the list price to something lower and used a coupon to get it the rest of the way. Yeah, but what you said there works just as well, potentially even better. So we didn't do it that way for a particular reason. We were just kind of demonstrating different approaches. But your reasoning for just keeping it at, say, $30 and doing like a $10 discount as a coupon is a valid one, and is probably gonna be more effective. I can't see any downside to doing it that way.
Same.
Yeah.
Question. All right, so this next question is, hi, I'm completely new and I want to start selling on Amazon. Where should I start? Well, this is what we're talking about today. We have a how to sell on Amazon video over on our YouTube channel. There's great questions in there, but feel free to leave your questions that we didn't answer today in this chat of this video, or I'm sorry, in the comment section of this video. But if you're looking for a place to start, it's an hour-and-a-half long, essentially like a free course of how to get started on Amazon and how to launch your product on Amazon. You can find that over on our YouTube channel.
All right, so gonna jump into the live questions here for a few minutes. Okay.
Thanks guys for being here. I really appreciate all the questions we've got. This has been super awesome seeing all your questions. Again, we're probably not gonna be able to get to everyone because there's just so much to go through. But again, leave your comments on YouTube in our comment section. And Jungle Scout, like, we always respond to our comments, especially on YouTube. So if you didn't get an answer, just let you know that's where you can ask your questions post video.
Yeah, we're gonna follow up here from Jack, who says, unfortunately, like, there was no Amazon acknowledgement and there's no case until August 4. This sounds eerily similar to what happened to us. So it sounds like, Amazon has acknowledged that the shipment has arrived, even though the tracking number says that it's been delivered. And then Amazon's not allowing him to open up a case until like a couple of months later. It sounds like exactly what happened to our missing shipment, which unfortunately, I don't think we have like a solution for it. Like that's just been a pain. I think it's still missing, right?
Yes.
And Amazon kept, not to be the bearer of bad news, but in our case, hopefully this doesn't happen to you, Amazon kept shifting the date that we could open the case, which was frustrating. And we're trying to say, like, this was like months ago, but they kept shifting it, or they would like, I don't know how it worked.
It was a nightmare because, it was like a year old now, but just opening cases and cases and cases is the best thing you can do in accelerating that case, or escalating it. You're gonna have to eventually open a case, so you can start that process now. But yeah, hopefully you're able to get it resolved.
Yeah. I guess, there's nothing else we can really suggest but to just keep following up. That sucks. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, but then escalate, just keep going. You can call them too. So calling on the phone, in my opinion, I think is the best way of getting something back, because email is literally, they're copying and pasting responses back to you. On the phone, they'll say, I'm gonna go get my manager, hold. And then a lot of times, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But either way, you're escalating the case, talking to them on the phone, because you're putting them on the spot. And hopefully that's a better way to communicate too. So I would recommend calling them.
I think that's probably like a great tip, or the best advice in a sucky situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, Tekken Wanderlust says, my 13-year-old son wants to get into Amazon FBA, and I told him to learn the process, and I'll give him $3,000 to $5,000 to get started.
Dang, nice.
Any roadblocks that we may encounter since he is 13? I mean, I literally have no experience with kind of this scenario, but I would say that, like, on the legal side, it's like this probably all needs to be set up under a business or a trust or under an adult's name. And like, if you want your son to execute and be doing the work, it's like, I imagine that the business itself and everything would need to be, under, your name, and probably, like, I'm assuming that by roadblocks, you're talking about like kind of legalities and so forth. It's like, I would probably put all of that under your name or something like that. Other roadblocks, I have no idea. Maybe I would say you probably want to work with your son and do, maybe it's like a cool thing that you can do together. It's like I would, you know, I think there's a lot of value from just having more like life experience, or like there's just going to be things that like the older you are, you're going to think of that maybe a 13-year-old mightn't consider, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I would suggest maybe doing it with him, because you probably, you know, again, because it's $3,000 to $5,000. If you're totally okay with like losing that money, then that's fine. But you know, that is a significant amount of money. So I think it's a great learning experience for your son. But I'd probably encourage you to have some involvement in that, just to keep things in check.
I would say, a lot of people charge $3,000 to $5,000 for Amazon courses, which is crazy. But getting a real life experience with that money is going to be the best return on your investment, I think. So that's awesome. I think that's a cool thing you're doing for your son there. So watch our YouTube videos. We have tons of like blog post content too that will help him maybe understand what to expect a little bit better. But just know, like, going through the process will be the most valuable piece of knowledge that you'll take away from this. So yeah, this is awesome that you're doing that for him. Yeah,
I can't give any parenting advice because I'm not a parent, but
you're a dog dad.
Yeah, I'm a dog dad. Yeah. So okay, I take that back. I am definitely a parent. But Albus is not going to be selling on Amazon anytime soon. Although he is like selling he is like the model on our listing. I don't know. I don't know how to go about this, but if there's any way that you can kind of give your son some skin in the game, where like even if he's got his own pocket money or something, if there's something of his that can sort of be on the line, like I find that experience to be the best experience. So both Jake and I, we sell in like personally on Amazon, and we also manage the Jungle Scouts brand, Jungle Creations, and both are great learning experiences. But I tell you that like using your own money when your own skin is in the game, where it's like if something goes wrong, that's on you. If you lose money, you feel it a lot. It's a different experience than like us, managing Jungle Scouts brand and money. So I feel like a valuable part of this is if you've got something personally at stake, and it doesn't have to be crazy. Because like as a 13-year-old managing someone else's like $3,000 to $5,000, it's going to be a different experience than if like something of value to you is sort of like on the line. It kind of gives you, just like a little bit more skin in the game. I'm not sure quite how that would look, but I don't know. That's just a thought that popped into my mind.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Cool. All right. Question here from Milana. Oh, who I think we featured like a bunch of your questions.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So yeah, thanks for joining. I created my first private label listing, and my brand name and UPC barcode isn't matching due to the brand being not registered. Should I buy a UPC barcode as generic? Oh, good question. I think that's saying that Amazon might be checking against the GS1 registry to see what the brand name is listed as on GS1. Perhaps.
Yes, that's usually the issue. I came into this or ran into this myself once. You just got to reach out to Amazon and like prove that, or if it doesn't actually match up from GS1 and what you put on Amazon, then those need to be the same.
Right.
I think we actually have that with our Jungle Creations brand, right? Where it's slightly different.
Yeah, I don't remember it being an issue when we were setting up Jungle Creations. So I haven't dealt with it personally. I think you could like go. I think you can go and update in GS1 as well.
Right. If you can't, that's like where I'd start first, is update it in GS1 to reflect what it actually is. And then if that's not the case, then on Amazon, you can provide documentation. So you can send them, I don't know if it's probably not like a screenshot. I'm sure they have an official download or something that you can get from your GS1 account, and then open a case with Amazon and send them to that, or send them that information. And again, calling them on the phone is going to be a great way of escalating your case. So I think that's two ways to tackle it, from the root with GS1 or through Amazon to say, hey, this is my brand name that's registered, and then hopefully they will approve it on the back end for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Vlad says, what is the best way to handle fake negative reviews on my products? I can't remember if there's like a reporting system or like something you can do.
It's a tough one.
Through brand registry.
Yeah.
To be honest, like sometimes you can see like obviously fake reviews. Other times, you know, I have come across like people that are like, oh, these are fake and so forth, but it's like they could just be negative as well. It can be hard to know for sure. Personally, like, yep, I've come across it. I understand it. It's painful, and it's especially painful when you're starting out and every one of those reviews counts a lot.
Yeah.
Generally, my philosophy is just to kind of like focus on the positive reviews and bolstering those and trying to acquire lots more high quality ones. I know that doesn't necessarily like help out in this with this question, but I personally just try not to focus on it too much. But I do acknowledge that, yeah, again, particularly if you're just starting out, those can really sting. I
guess there is one more way, but this is a longer term thing. And Amazon recently just updated that only 100 of your most recent written reviews will display. So the other way about doing this is to just keep selling more and to get that review pushed further down the list. And after you have 100 more reviews, more recent reviews, then that will no longer actually be visible on your listing. So that's more of a longer term play and more of like a philosophical way of thinking about this is just keep selling more, keep getting more reviews, and eventually those good reviews will outweigh the bad reviews. So not everybody's just gonna land on that one review and take it as the whole source of truth. So just keep selling, keep getting more reviews, and those reviews will outpower that one bad review.
All right, Milana followed up. Yes, guys, I'm always bumping you guys with my questions. Lol. No, I couldn't update on GS1. Had to buy a new UPC like generic and waiting 72 hours for the system to update. Okay, cool. That's good to hear. Fingers crossed. Good luck with that. I hope it works for you. All right, so we're just gonna like wrap up here. Okay, actually, so Legit X says, I found 4 really good products with great profit ROI and low competition, but I have to choose one of them. I'm struggling to choose the best one. Please help. That sounds like a good problem to have. 4 really good products with great profit, ROI, and low competition. I mean, probably like the next thing that comes to mind for me is like, which is the lowest investment? If these truly do just tick all of those boxes. Actually, no, so there's 2 things. I would say like highest demand, which one has just ultimately the highest demand? You've got the most opportunity to sell the most units.
Right.
Which one has the highest demand? Again, if they are all pretty similar in that sense, then I would kind of go like, which is the cheapest upfront investment? If I've got 4 exact same product, or no, 4 exact same good opportunities, one cost me $2,000, the other cost me $10,000. It's like I might as well go with the less riskier one if I've got the same reward from both of them. So
definitely,
yeah, that's probably the next thing I would think about.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a good one that you've been talking about recently, and it's like another sort of filter is like which products lend themselves more to getting reviews. Maybe I'll let you speak to that and why.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, there's so many different products get reviews, or so many different categories get reviews at a faster rate. So an example of a pet product, people love to take pictures of their pets on RP pads, and they just have that in their camera roll, and so they're willing to submit that review more easily than like a very generic product like a fork. Nobody wants to take a picture of a fork or even just like talk about how awesome or bad that fork was. So one cool like way we've been thinking about this a little bit is like go into categories that have high review rates, and you can use a Jungle Scout extension to see essentially like when a product launches, how fast do they get the first 100 or 500 reviews, and you can just look at that for all the categories you're looking at. That's just one little thing. Maybe it helps you make the decision if everything's even. And then another thing real quickly here is like improvement potential. How easy can you, or how different is your product from everybody else's? Can you make a little change on one of these products that makes you stand out? If so, that could be a tipping point and help you decide which product to sell. So hopefully these are like good ideas to help you, I guess, tip the scales a little bit.
Awesome. Got a question here from Burnt Cream. Brand registry. It appears you need to have an order and agreement signed with a supplier before you can proceed with registry. Do you know a workaround as I wait for my first sample? Yeah, I guess I haven't gone through brand registry recently, so I don't know if it's different to when I last went through it, but I'll kind of recap the process that I went through previously, which could be different now, but I used the Amazon IP Accelerator program.
Looks like they did too, actually, the next comment.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh yeah, I should read that. So I'm only trying to get ahead for my first launch. I use the IP Accelerator for this purpose, but it doesn't seem to speed anything up. Am I missing something? Well, the way it worked for me is doing the Amazon IP Accelerator that puts you in touch with someone to get your trademark registered. And at that point, to get the trademark with this third-party company, there were two options. Could register for a trademark that was like, this is in use, or like I'm selling currently, or there was another status or type where it's like I intend to sell. And I went with that one because I was in the same situation with you as you, where it's like hadn't sold or bought the product yet. So I went into the category of like, no, I intend to sell in the future, and basically like that was an option. Was able to pay for that and register the trademark under I intend to sell. It did cost a little bit more. There was a difference of $100 or $200 for some reason if you go that way. It's slightly cheaper if you are selling already, but you know, this was the faster option. And then upon choosing that option and they got started on that trademark process, yeah, I was able to, you know, that connected to Sell Essential, and the brand registry was set up within like a couple of weeks or something. So that was the experience I have. I'm curious, at what point were you asked to have an order and an agreement signed with a supplier? Is this from the company doing the trademark, or is this from Amazon?
It could be too, like, because I did this recently. I wonder if your roadblock is you need to send them a picture of your label on the product. When I went through this with the same angle that you went in, the intent to sell, I actually just used my sample and I had like my label on there ready. So I just submitted that product image. I used the IP Accelerator as well, and they used that to like get me approved or submitted. And so maybe that's what was holding you up.
You had to send that to Amazon?
Or no, I sent it to the IP Accelerator company I was using, so like the law firm, through the accelerator. So that was stopping me initially. I'm curious if Burnt Cream, this is what's happening to you, but like.
So even though you were like registering as like I intend to sell, you still had to send them something?
Yeah, so they needed essentially like my product with the label on it. So like my name, so like Jungle Creations essentially. They needed to see my label on the product. And I had to send that in because they basically just need a photo of it in use, even if it's not in use yet. It was a weird.
Oh, that's weird because I didn't have to go through that. This is like as of like a year ago, but that's at least what I went through. Okay. It could be different, but that probably sounds like the same thing.
I wonder if that's the roadblock. Yeah.
Okay, so it says like, do you know a workaround as you wait for your first sample? So if we're on the right track, then I think you would need to at least wait until you get your first sample. To at least have something physical to be able to take a photo and send to them.
It needs like your brand name on it.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to just like get away with like printing out.
To be honest, that's what I did. My supplier sent me a sample without my label on it, and I just printed out my label, put it on there, because I already had that design. So I just did that, and then they didn't tell from the photo.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like you weren't like doing like the brand is real and that you are planning to sell. It's just you're changing the design of the packaging and products, I guess.
So he did follow up. Sorry, say that he did that, what he mentioned. You used the picture, but they want a signed agreement with supplier. I can't remember if I had to do that or not, but maybe that is part of it, and I just can't remember doing that.
Wow, okay. Maybe this is like something new that wasn't required before. That's interesting, because again, it sounds like neither of us had to have that step. So
yeah, I don't recall.
I mean, if that's all they need, it's like it should be fairly straightforward. I'm hoping for you to kind of get an agreement in place and get your supplier to sign that. Yeah, I haven't heard of that personally, as we've just been saying, but hopefully you can just reach out to your supplier and get that document created and get them to sign it so that you can kind of like keep moving forward.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it does
sounds
sound new.
new. Okay, that's yeah, interesting to know. All right. Let's see.
Oh, cool.
All right, well, we've been going for a little while now, so I think we are gonna wrap up. Cool, just a follow up here from Jack. Thanks for chiming in. If you buy from Alibaba, the order includes a link for a contract. That worked for my brand. Oh, cool. Yeah, that is true. There is like a contract document in Alibaba. So it sounds like maybe Jack went through the same process there.
Nice.
Very awesome. Well, hope you guys have got some value from today's live stream and the questions that we answered. Thank you all for on Instagram and on YouTube for submitting questions. Hope you got a lot of value. As Jake mentioned earlier, make sure to check out the full How to Sell on Amazon video that covers all the steps to kind of get you started. But yeah, ultimately, good luck with your business, whatever stage you're at. Thanks again for tuning in, and hope to see you all in another live stream in the future.
Yeah.
Take care.
We'll see you.